Have you ever looked back at something you just desperately wanted? Like something you actually cried over not getting?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we all have that one thing, right?
Right. And it's this wild, disorienting feeling. You look back at your past self sitting there on the floor, absolutely convinced that this one specific thing, a certain job, maybe a specific relationship or some massive opportunity, was basically the skeleton key to your entire happiness.
And you were just begging for it.
Literally begging. But then, with a few years of distance, you see clearly that if you had actually gotten what you were crying for, it would have completely ruined your life.
It would have been a total disaster.
Yeah, exactly. So today, we are going to explore exactly why we are so terrible at predicting what is actually good for us. We're doing a deep dive into a really unsettling, deceptively simple fable that completely upends how we think about luck and loss and, well, the things we desperately want.
It really flips the whole script on desire.
It totally does.
Yeah.
The source we are unpacking today is this brief text adapted from the second book of Rumi's Masnavi. Specifically, we're looking at an adaptation called The Thief and the Snake Catcher.
Right, which was authored by Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozin.
Yes, as part of their really brilliant series, Rumi's Tales and Wisdom. And our mission for this deep dive is to dissect this ancient story piece by piece so we can get into the actual psychological mechanisms of human desire.
Because we want to look at why our greatest losses might actually be our most profound rescues.
Exactly. But to do that, I mean, we have to start at the source of the danger, because the story doesn't actually begin with a theft. It begins with the original owner, the snake catcher, and this just massive delusion he has.
It begins with a fundamental misreading of reality. Basically, if we want to understand the trap that catches everyone in this story, we have to look at the environment first.
Set the scene for us.
Okay, so according to the text adapted by Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozin, we are introduced to a snake catcher who manages to capture this snake that they describe as huge and fearsome.
Sounds terrifying.
It is, but there is a massive caveat to this capture. The only reason this guy is able to handle this terrifying creature at all is because of the ambient temperature.
Oh, because they're up in the mountains, right?
Yeah, exactly. They are high up in the mountains, it is absolutely freezing cold, and the snake is in this state of deep torpor. Like, it appears completely lifeless.
Just frozen solid.
Basically. But the snake catcher, he doesn't view this as a stroke of environmental luck. The text actually tells us he is proud of his catch.
Wow.
Yeah, he immediately formulates this whole plan to haul it down into the city, show it off to a crowd, and make a fortune. He looks at a completely dormant predator and takes personal credit for its docility.
It's just the ultimate arrogance. I mean, he's basically standing inside a walk-in freezer, holding a block of ice with a monster inside it, and thinking to himself, wow, I am an incredible monster tamer.
Well, actually, I'd say the freezer analogy gives him a little too much credit.
Wait, really? How so?
Because a walk-in freezer implies that he at least controls the thermostat.
Oh, right. Good point.
This is worse than that. This is purely accidental geographical luck. He didn't lower the temperature, the mountain did.
Right. He just stumbled into the right weather.
Exactly. He just happened to stumble upon a lethal force of nature while it was temporarily paused by the cold. Yet, his psychology here is just fascinating because his ego immediately overrides any objective risk assessment.
He's totally blinded.
Totally blinded. He mistakes a temporary external condition, the cold, for his own internal mastery over the beast. His desire for the financial gain waiting for him down in the city completely blinds him to the reality of the biological time bomb he is carrying over his shoulder.
I see this exact same psychological blind spot all the time today.
Yeah.
If we drag this ancient snake catcher into the modern world, he looks an awful lot like a tech developer pushing a massively complex, potentially dangerous algorithm into the world.
Oh, absolutely. Or like an aggressive investor playing with highly volatile financial instruments.
Yes. Think about it. Someone builds this completely untested AI tool, or they leverage this dizzying portfolio of derivatives. The market weather right now is cold, meaning the economy is stable, the regulatory bodies haven't caught up, user behavior is predictable, and the asset seems totally dormant and under control.
Right. They see the dollar signs.
Exactly. The creator looks at the system, sees the massive payout, and arrogantly believes they have tamed it. They mistake a temporary calm in the system for their own sheer brilliance.
The 2008 financial crisis is a perfect historical echo of this exact fable, actually.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah, I mean, you had entire institutions carrying around these highly toxic subprime mortgages. And because the economic weather was warm, or, well, Cold in the context of the snake analogy, meaning safe.
Housing prices were artificially rising, so everything looked fine.
Right. Because of that, these toxic assets appeared entirely safe. They looked like massive, lucrative trophies. The bankers, much like our snake catcher, just paraded them around, completely oblivious to the fact that the inherent nature of the thing they were holding was lethal.
They forgot they were holding snakes.
Exactly. The text emphasizes that the snake, quote, seemed lifeless. That word, seemed, is the pivot point of the entire tragedy here.
Because it highlights the massive gap between perception and reality.
Precisely. The snake catcher's perception is warped by two things: pride and greed. He is so fixated on the crowd in the city and the coins in his pocket that he completely stops evaluating the actual inherent nature of the biological creature draped over his back. He forgets what a snake actually is.
He essentially strips the snake of its snakeness. It just becomes a unit of currency to him, which, makes me wonder about you, the listener, right now.
Yeah, it's a good time to reflect on that.
Think about the things you are carrying around in your life right now, the things you are incredibly proud of. Maybe it's a high-stakes project at work, or a volatile relationship where you think you can fix the other person. Or maybe it's a massive load of debt that you're convinced you can just out-earn.
Are you absolutely sure you've tamed those things?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you sure, or is the weather just cold right now? Because if your safety is entirely dependent on external conditions remaining exactly as they are, if one bad day at the office or one market dip means the whole thing bites you, you aren't a master. You're just a guy carrying a frozen snake.
And parading that frozen snake around publicly, displaying that false sense of control, is exactly what creates the gravitational pull for the next disaster in the story.
Right, because this is where the thief enters.
Yes, the snake catcher's swagger basically acts as an alluring, irresistible trap. As he makes his way toward the city, a thief spots the snake. And the text notes that the thief immediately grows covetous.
Covetous. That's a powerful word.
It is. He doesn't see a lethal threat at all. He sees the snake catcher's pride, he sees the sheer size of the prize, and he just thinks, I need to have that.
So the thief is sitting there watching this whole spectacle, and his brain just completely bypasses every single survival instinct he has.
Completely short circuits.
He looks at a massive, fearsome predator, and his only thought is, how can I steal that and monetize it? And honestly, the craziest part is he actually pulls it off.
He does. The text says he waits until the snake catcher isn't looking, and then he furtively and cunningly steals the snake, slipping away with it completely unnoticed.
We really need to drill down into the specific language Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozen used to describe this heist, though, because the contrast they set up is kind of the core of the psychological warning here.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
On one hand, they describe the thief's actions using words like cunning and furtive. This implies a really high degree of capability, like this is a guy who knows what he's doing.
Oh, he's a professional. He observes the environment, he tracks the snake catcher's line of sight, he calculates the exact window of opportunity, and he executes the theft flawlessly. Tactically, he is brilliant.
Right. But then, immediately following that description of his incredible skill, the text delivers this devastating diagnosis.
Yeah.
It just says, quote, but the thief was ignorant.
He's playing 4D chess to steal a live hand grenade.
Yes, that is exactly what he's doing.
And that is the exact mechanism at play. He possesses incredible tactical cunning, yet he fundamentally lacks strategic wisdom. He knows exactly how to steal the object, but he has absolutely no idea what the object actually is.
He's totally blind to the reality of it.
Completely. The text explicitly tells us that he believed the snake was dead or powerless because it lay so still and cold. Furthermore, it says he saw his theft as a great profit, counting it as a gain.
Which explores this terrifying glitch in human cognition, doesn't it? Like how we define success purely through the lens of acquisition.
Exactly. The thief evaluates his reality entirely through a transactional framework. He equates the act of getting something with victory. Period. He is skilled enough to bypass the snake catcher's defenses, sure, but his ignorance lies in his total inability to accurately assess the inherent value and the inherent danger of the prize itself.
I want to push back on the idea of his skill for a second, though, or at least point out the brutal irony of it. The text calls him cunning, but isn't it true that his very success, like his high level of competence, is the exact thing that dooms him?
Oh, that is a fantastic point.
Think about the mechanics of this heist. If you'd been a terrible thief, if you'd been clumsy, if you'd tripped over a rock and made a loud noise, the snake catcher would have turned around and caught him red-handed and probably beaten him to a pulp right there.
Or the local authorities would have thrown him in a dungeon.
Right, it would have been a terrible, horrible day for him.
Yeah.
But his life would have been saved.
Because he wouldn't have the snake.
Exactly. His tactical cunning actually outpaces his wisdom. He is far too good at his job for his own good.
The friction of incompetence would have been his salvation. That is such a profound way to look at it. You are highlighting one of the biggest paradoxes of human endeavor. We celebrate competence so much.
We worship it, really.
We do. We worship the hustle, the grind, the ability to efficiently bypass obstacles and just get what we want. But we rarely, if ever, pause to question the nature of the thing we are hurtling toward.
We just want to win the game.
Right. The thief's competence allowed him to seamlessly bypass the natural friction that might have otherwise acted as a protective barrier. When you are highly capable, you can acquire dangerous things much faster than someone who is clumsy.
You just speedrun your own destruction.
Precisely. You see this in the text's emphasis on his internal state. He counts it as a great profit. He experiences the dopamine hit of the win, but that thrill is entirely manufactured by his own limited data set.
He has completely divorced the object from its reality. To him, the snake isn't an animal with fangs and venom. It's just an asset on a spreadsheet.
And that is the true danger of the transactional mindset. When you reduce the world to mere commodities to be acquired, you blind yourself to their nature. He believes he has outsmarted the snake catcher. He's probably walking away feeling like the smartest guy in the mountains right now.
But in reality, he has only outsmarted his own evolutionary survival instincts. He has effectively stolen his own executioner.
Which is such a chilling thought.
It really is. Which brings us back to you, the listener. How often in your life have your ability to efficiently get what you want actually been the very thing that destroyed your peace?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer, honestly.
Right? Have you ever hustled incredibly hard for something? Maybe you aggressively network your way into a specific social circle, or you outmaneuvered a colleague to get a specific client, bypassing all the little red flags and warnings along the way, purely because you just wanted to win?
You use all your cunning to steal the prize.
Exactly. Completely unaware that the prize was toxic. We are so obsessed with the how of getting things that we completely abandon the what.
And what inevitably reveals itself, which leads us to the structural climax of the fable. The thief has successfully acquired the prize. He has evaded detection. He thinks the game is over, and he has won.
But the game is just starting.
It is. The physical act of taking this coveted prize into his own personal space is what fundamentally alters the chemistry of the whole situation.
Okay, walk us through what happens next.
According to the adaptation, the thief takes the snake home, and then the environment shifts. The text says, quote, "As the warmth of the house spread, the snake slowly revived."
Oh, man.
Yeah. The cold-blooded predator absorbs the ambient heat of the thief's sanctuary. It wakes up from its torpor, it strikes, and it kills the thief instantly.
This is the most gripping, chilling image in the whole story for me. The idea of the warm house, because a home is universally understood to be a place of absolute safety.
It is the ultimate sanctuary.
Right. For the thief, crossing the threshold of his home with the stolen snake represents the finish line of his triumph. He can lock the door behind him, shut out the cold, dangerous world of the mountains, and finally just relax to count his perceived profits.
He thinks he's safe.
But the story introduces this terrifying mechanism where the warmth, the very attainment of comfort, the arrival at safety, is the exact catalyst for his destruction. The comfort itself is the trigger.
The mechanism of the warmth is brilliant, really, because it illustrates that the danger was not created in that moment.
What do you mean by that?
Well, the thief didn't spontaneously generate a lethal threat. He merely incubated one that was already there. The venom, the fangs, the predatory instinct, they were all latent. They were patiently waiting. They were just masked by the hostile, cold environment of the outdoors.
Ah, I see. So the warmth of the house didn't transmute a harmless object into a weapon.
Exactly. It merely provided the exact atmospheric conditions necessary for the weapon to function. The thief's sanctuary thawed his ruin.
Okay, we really need to unpack the mechanics of this for our own lives. Because to me, this warm house concept is the most flawless analogy for the moment we finally achieve a major life goal.
Oh, totally. It's the moment we bring the thing we've been coveting into the center of our lives.
Imagine you spend 5 years coveting a massive promotion to become an executive at your company. You hustle, you use all your tactical cunning, you work 80-hour weeks, you beat out all the competition, and you finally get the title in the corner office.
You bring the prize into the warmth of your house.
Exactly. You feel like you've arrived, the struggle is over.
But the struggle has only just mutated.
Wait, no, it's actually worse than mutated. The struggle has finally woken up. Because what you didn't realize when you were coveting that title from the outside, when the weather was cold and you were just looking at the salary and the prestige, is that the job fundamentally requires you to compromise your core morals.
Or the specific pressures of that role absolutely destroy your nervous system.
Right. Or the travel schedule completely alienates you from your spouse and your kids. The warmth of your success, the very fact that you now inhabit the role every single day, is exactly what awakens the latent destructive consequences of that ambition.
The stress, the burnout, the moral injury, that is the venom thawing out.
You bring the prize into the center of your life, and that's the exact moment it strikes.
And look at the suddenness of the consequence in the text. Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozin explicitly note that the snake struck and killed him instantly.
Instantly, no warning.
Right. The pacing of that sentence is very deliberate. It emphasizes the absolute lack of time for regret, negotiation, or course correction once the true nature of the desire is fully revealed. It is a stark, brutal warning about the irreversible consequences of blind acquisition.
Because he spent all his energy on the acquisition.
Exactly. The thief spent 99% of his cognitive energy figuring out how to get the snake into his house, and 0% of his energy considering the chemical reality of what would happen once the ambient temperature of his living room interacted with a cold-blooded reptile.
It's the classic dog chasing a car metaphor.
Oh, I love that analogy. Explain that for the listener.
So, the dog spends all its energy sprinting down the street barking, completely focused on closing the distance to the car. But the dog has absolutely no plan for the physics of what happens when it actually sinks its teeth into a moving metal bumper.
The catch is the catastrophe.
The catch is the catastrophe. That is exactly it.
By achieving his goal, the thief engineers his own immediate demise. But, the narrative structure of the fable does something very interesting right here.
Doesn't end with the thief, right?
No, it doesn't end with the thief's corpse. It dramatically pivots back to the man who was left empty-handed on the mountain.
The original owner. The snake catcher.
Yes, the man who has been unknowingly protected by what he firmly believed was a catastrophic misfortune.
Let's talk about the snake catcher, because this is where the story forces us to kind of look in the mirror.
It really does.
The text tells us that eventually the snake catcher learns that his snake was stolen, and then he hears the news that the thief is dead. And his reaction is a complete paradigm shift. He looks up and thanks God, saying, quote, "Now I understand. I was praying to get my snake back, but God in his mercy did not answer my prayer. He saved me from its harm."
What Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozin are highlighting from Rumi's original work here is a dramatic, total inversion of perspective.
It's huge.
We are watching a character realize that his entire emotional reality for the past however many hours or days was built on a complete illusion.
Because when he first realized it was gone.
Right. When the snake catcher first realized his massive, valuable prize was missing, we can safely deduce his psychological state. He felt victimized. He felt robbed of his livelihood, his source of pride, his future financial security in the city.
He probably thought his life was over.
Exactly. He actively prayed to recover his stolen property. He was begging the universe to hand him back the very thing that was going to kill him. And his realization forces the reader to grapple with a very uncomfortable truth. That our immediate visceral reactions to loss are almost always based on incredibly limited, deeply flawed data.
I mean, I completely agree with the philosophical lesson here, but I really have to push back on how neatly this wraps up for the snake catcher.
What do you mean?
It is incredibly easy for him to be thankful after he gets the police report about the dead thief,
Well, sure, he gets the ultimate luxury of hindsight.
Exactly. He gets to see the alternate timeline play out on someone else. But think about the absolute agonizing misery he must have been in the night before. Put yourself in his shoes.
Oh, it would have been awful.
He is sitting there in the cold, cursing his terrible luck, feeling entirely abandoned by the universe, wondering how he's going to feed himself, just boiling with anger at the injustice of being robbed. The agony of the unanswered prayer is real physical pain in the moment.
That's true. The pain is very real.
The snake catcher gets this neat little cosmic reveal. But in real life, you and I rarely get to see the dead thief. We don't get the closure. We just have to live with the hollow, burning feeling of the loss without ever knowing what we were saved from.
You are touching on the core torment of the human condition right there. You are absolutely right. We almost never get the satisfying closure of seeing the catastrophic alternate timeline. We are forced to navigate the pain of the denial without the proof of the rescue.
Which is so hard.
It's incredibly hard. The snake catcher is granted a highly unusual moment of cosmic clarity to serve as the vehicle for Rumi's lesson here. But look closely at the exact phrase he uses. Quote, "Now I understand."
Now I understand.
That exclamation implies a vast preceding wasteland of profound misunderstanding. For hours or days, he was completely certain that he knew what was best for his life. He was completely certain that his prayers were perfectly aligned with his own well-being.
And he was completely wrong.
Exactly. The revelation that his prayers, if they had been answered, would have been fatal, entirely shatters his previous operating system for how he views the world. It exposes a terrifying reality. Our own deepest desires can be aggressively hostile to our own survival.
Our desires can be aggressively hostile to our survival. Wow, that is a chilling sentence.
It's the truth of the story.
Because it means the call is coming from inside the house. We always think the danger is external, a bad economy, a terrible boss, a malicious competitor. But this story is basically saying the primary threat to your existence is the list of things you are begging the universe to give you.
Which is exactly why the text provided by Dr. Amani and Dr. Nozin doesn't just stop when the literal events of the fable conclude. They move into a deeper, explicit philosophical breakdown of what this psychological mechanism actually means for us.
Drawing on Rumi's broader reflections.
Yes, drawing directly on Rumi. The source explicitly outlines the core thesis here. Unanswered prayers can be our greatest blessings.
Such a tough pill to swallow.
It is. The misfortunes we desperately pray to avoid are frequently blessings in heavy disguise, while the fortunes we actively, aggressively pursue might become the exact instruments of our undoing. The authors summarize it with this brutal truth. Quote, "People often cling blindly to dangerous desires, misjudging true harm and benefit."
Let's dissect that phrase for a second. Cling blindly. It's not just that we casually want the wrong things.
No, it's a desperate attachment.
Right. It's that we latch onto them with a death grip. We fight tooth and nail, we ruin relationships, we destroy our health, all to hold on to the very things that are actively poisoning us, purely because we have misjudged their true nature.
This section of the text is really unpacking the profound vulnerability of our existence. We operate in a perpetual state of what the authors term ignorance or limited knowledge.
Because we just can't see the big picture.
Exactly. Because our human perspective is inherently biologically restricted to the present moment and our immediate emotional landscape, we are fundamentally unreliable narrators of our own lives. We lack the temporal vantage point to see the long-term mechanics of cause and effect.
We just don't have the data.
We don't. Yet, despite this massive handicap, we aggressively label things. We label an event as good or bad, profit or loss, fortune or misfortune, with supreme, totally unwarranted confidence.
Oh, that is so true.
We are essentially flying a plane through a dense fog with instruments that only show us the next 5 feet, yet we confidently declare that we know exactly where the mountain peaks are. We chase things unaware that they carry ruin.
I want to zoom in on a very specific detail in this source text that actually stopped me in my tracks when I read it. The authors write that out of this limited knowledge, we seek things, and they list them out specifically, quote, desires, positions, possessions, thinking they are good, unaware they may bring ruin.
Yes, that list is very intentional.
I understand desires and possessions. Those are pretty obvious. But why do you think Rumi, or the authors adapting him here, explicitly highlight social or professional positions? Like, how exactly does a promotion, a new title, or a social status act just like a frozen snake?
That is such a great question, because positions are perhaps the most dangerous form of the frozen snake.
Really? More than possessions?
Absolutely, because unlike a physical possession, a position deeply infiltrates your ego and your core identity. If you covet a physical possession, a pile of gold, a luxury car, or, a literal snake, it remains external to you. It's just an object.
Okay, that makes sense.
But a position, a title of authority, a status within a community, a role of immense power that fundamentally alters how the world interacts with you and, more dangerously, how you perceive yourself.
It rewires your internal monologue entirely.
Exactly. It changes your psychological baseline. Just like the snake catcher who was, quote, proud of his catch, we use positions to signal our worth to the rest of the city. We use titles to demand respect from others.
But where's the venom in that?
The venom of a position is usually completely invisible until you occupy it. A high-status position almost always comes with unseen, corrosive burdens,
Like what?
like intense paranoia about losing the status, or agonizing moral compromises that are just required to maintain the power, or profound isolation because your peers are now your subordinates, or simply the intoxicating, corrupting influence of authority itself.
Wow. So the timeline plays out exactly like the fable then. When
Yeah.
you are striving for the position, you are out in the cold. You only see the prestige, the salary increase, the respect.
Mhm.
You are looking at a dormant asset.
Yes. You see the shiny exterior, but once you attain the position, once you bring that new title into the warmth of your daily existence, the latent venom of that role begins to thaw.
The crushing responsibilities, the public scrutiny, the toxic office politics, they wake up.
They wake up and they strike. They can destroy your character, your physical health, your family life, or your fundamental sense of right and wrong. By explicitly naming positions, the text is warning us that abstract social constructs are just as capable of being lethal, venomous traps as any physical danger.
Think about the listener, maybe sitting in traffic right now, furiously plotting out their 5-year career plan, scheming, networking, being cunning and furtive like the thief, all to steal a position that might give them a heart attack at age 50.
The title is The Snake.
Title is The Snake. It's terrifying to realize how much of our lives is spent meticulously planning our own psychological assassinations, which I think brings us to the ultimate conclusion of this deep dive.
Yes, the final synthesis.
We have to synthesize Rumi's final radical proposition about the nature of the universe, loss, and how we cope with the things we just don't get. The source text concludes with an incredibly powerful, almost blunt summary. It says, quote, "Not every loss is evil, and not every desire is worth pursuing. God's denial may, in fact, be his care."
This closing statement is the fulcrum of the entire philosophy here. It offers immense, profound comfort, but it simultaneously demands an excruciatingly difficult challenge from us.
Because it goes against everything we feel.
Exactly. To accept this worldview requires a massive, almost violent surrender of the ego. It means we have to voluntarily step down from the director's chair of our own lives. We have to openly admit that our limited knowledge completely disqualifies us from knowing what is actually best for our own narrative.
That is so deeply contrary to modern culture, isn't it? I mean, we are taught to manifest, to take control, to be the architects of our own destiny. And this text is essentially saying, you're a terrible architect. You keep putting venomous reptiles in the bedroom.
We are terrible architects, and that is why the challenge is so severe. It requires the complete reprogramming of our automatic emotional responses.
Right. Because when we experience a denial, a bitter rejection, a humiliating failure, a sudden and inexplicable loss, our biological and psychological instinct is to view it as a punishment.
We view it as an attack. We use the text's exact word. We view it as evil.
We feel targeted, deprived, and victimized by the universe. But the text invites us to reframe that entirely. It demands that we stop viewing a no from the universe as an act of cruelty, and instead view it as an act of profound, aggressive protection.
Aggressive protection. I love that phrasing, because it reminds me so vividly of a parent dealing with a toddler. If you want to understand the gap between our limited knowledge and the universe's care, just look at a parent in a kitchen.
Okay, set the scene.
Imagine a 2-year-old toddler sees a brilliantly sharp, freshly honed chef's knife resting on the edge of the counter. To the toddler, with their limited data set, that knife is pure treasure.
Oh, absolutely. It's shiny.
It's beautiful, it catches the light, it looks like a fascinating toy. They desperately covet it, they reach up on their tiptoes to grab it, but the parent swoops in at the last possible second and snatches the knife away. What does the toddler do?
They experience absolute devastation.
Total devastation. The toddler cries. They scream at the staggering unfairness of the universe. They throw themselves on the floor in a full tantrum.
Because in their subjective reality, they are experiencing this event purely as a cruel, arbitrary denial of a shiny treasure. They feel a profound, visceral sense of loss.
They are the snake catcher raging on the mountain.
Yes. But the parent isn't punishing the child at all. The parent is acting purely out of care, utilizing a superior vantage point and a superior knowledge of danger, the concept of a razor-sharp edge, the reality of blood and stitches, that the toddler simply does not possess the neurological hardware to understand yet.
The toddler's unanswered prayer to hold the shiny object is the only thing keeping them out of the emergency room.
That analogy is the perfect, exact encapsulation of the text's final message, isn't it?
It really is. The toddler cannot comprehend the mechanism of a laceration, just as the thief could not comprehend the reviving nature of a cold-blooded reptile in a warm house.
And just as we, with our limited human knowledge, often cannot comprehend the long-term spiritual, emotional, or physical ruin that will be brought on by the fulfillment of our own blind ambitions.
God's denial may, in fact, be his care is the ultimate paradigm shift.